Bioluminescent waves lapped against the coral platforms of Virelia Prime, their glow dimming beneath the crimson light that streaked across the night sky. The heavens were burning. What began as faint pinpricks hours ago had become falling embers, ships, dozens of them, breaking atmosphere in fiery trails that lit the sea with reflections of dread. Lyra Tesh pressed her translucent hand against the glass of the observation dome, her skin shimmering faintly as biolights along her veins pulsed faster. Behind her, the council chamber filled with murmurs of disbelief. The Drath Syndicate, slavers, raiders, a name spoken in other systems like a curse, had arrived at last. Their promise of peaceful negotiation had always been a lie. The Virelians were gentle by design, shaped by centuries of calm tides and symbiosis, not war. A concussive boom rippled through the seafloor. Somewhere far below, a city node, one of their living coral reactors, had died. The hum of the chamber lights faltered. Lyra turned to the council elders, their thin frames shimmering under stress pigments. "We must send the signal," she urged. "Now, before they breach the surface." Elder Karos hesitated. His gills fluttered in the heavy air. "To whom, Lyra?" "The Concord delays response for cycles. None will come in time." "Someone will hear," she said. Her voice trembled, but her conviction did not. "We cannot face them alone." Another explosion echoed through the deep, closer this time. Fractures appeared along the dome above, thin webs of light crawling like lightning. The chamber dimmed as the living coral structure around them drew energy inward, trying to seal itself. Lyra reached the console and touched the organic interface. Bioluminescent tendrils uncoiled like vines, wrapping around her wrists. The system recognized her genetic imprint, responding to the urgency pulsing through her bloodstream. "To all allied systems," she began. "This is Virelia Prime, under attack by the Drath Syndicate. We request immediate assistance. Civilian casualties are mounting. Please." Static drowned her voice. The signal pulsed outward in biowaves, amplified through coral networks and sent into the dark between stars. For a moment, silence returned, then the chamber shook again as a Drath landing vessel pierced the horizon. "Signal sent," she said softly. She didn't know if anyone would ever hear it. The elders began evacuation protocols. Organic bridges detached from the main dome, curling toward subaquatic shelters. Lyra lingered, staring through the fractured glass. The Drath fleet descended in disciplined formation, dark and glimmering, like a swarm of steel predators. When the first bombardment struck the capital reef, daylight vanished. The living coral screamed, a low-frequency resonance that rippled through every structure. Towers bent and split apart, releasing bioluminescent spores that floated into the smoke-choked water. Lyra felt the vibrations in her chest as though her own organs were fracturing. She grabbed a control node and ordered the coral shield to rise, but half the reactors had already gone dark. The Drath were methodical. They targeted communication relays, then power conduits, then civilian shelters. Every detonation carved silence where once there had been music. Lyra ran. Through corridors pulsing with dim blue light, past wounded technicians clutching ruptured skin membranes, through the heart of a city unraveling. She reached the outer docks, where evacuation vessels, grown from giant shell organisms, were preparing to submerge. Families crowded the platforms, holding larvae, guiding elders, praying to the sea mind. Her communicator flickered, one of the biowaves had bounced back, an echo. Someone had received their call. But the pattern was wrong. It wasn't Concord encryption. It was jagged, coarse, old. Human. She froze, her heart pulsing fast enough to brighten her veins. No one in the council had mentioned humans in decades. Deathworlders, the Concord had called them, an unpredictable, violent species from a toxic world. Their biology was chaos, muscles adapted to crushing gravity, immune systems that devour disease, instincts honed by predation. To most civilized races, they were a myth wrapped in warning stories. Lyra didn't have the luxury of choice. She opened the reply channel. The signal was distorted, saturated with mechanical noise. "This is Earth Command, Expeditionary Response Division," a voice crackled through. The accent was rough, the cadence too fast. "We received your distress beacon. Identify threat type." Lyra swallowed, unsure if her translator could parse the words. "Drath Syndicate. They are destroying us." "Coordinates received," the voice said. "Stand by. You'll have company soon." The transmission cut. She stared at the fading static. That was it, no promise of fleet numbers, no protocol forms, no reassurances. Just a voice full of grit and certainty. Outside, the sky tore open again, not with Drath flame this time, but with a singular rift of blue-white energy. Something emerged from hyperspace, angular and black, its hull reflecting no light. It hung there, silent, its presence alone bending the clouds below. The Drath ships immediately broke formation, adjusting course to intercept. Lyra squinted through the haze. The foreign craft was smaller than a Concorde dreadnought, yet it radiated a menace she could feel through the hull. She watched as panels unfolded along its sides, revealing rows of metallic pods and pulsing lines of pale energy. A single transmission cut across every channel in orbit. The voice was female, calm, level, and utterly without fear. "This is Captain Asha Drake of the Earth colonial ship Valkyrie," it said. "Virelia Prime, your signal was received. Stand clear of the upper atmosphere. We are engaging." Lyra's gills constricted. Engage? Against an entire invasion fleet? That was suicide. The Valkyrie moved. It descended like a blade through the clouds, its thrusters igniting the air in concentric ripples. Missiles streaked outward, not elegant plasma lances like the Concorde used, but dense, kinetic slugs traveling faster than sound. The first volley ripped through the leading Drath cruiser, tearing it open like a shell under pressure. Lyra stumbled back as the shockwave hit. The humans hadn't even opened comms to coordinate. They simply attacked, precisely, brutally, efficiently. She watched, entranced and horrified, as the black warship wove through the Drath formation, evading fire with impossible agility. Each maneuver was instinct, not pattern. Each strike deliberate, final. Within minutes, 3 Drath ships were falling toward the ocean, burning. Lyra pressed her trembling hands to the glass. This was no relief force. No peaceful aid. The humans had come. And the sea itself seemed to hold its breath. The Valkyrie cut through the last veil of Virelia's upper atmosphere like a falling shard of night. Its hull hissed with vapor as plasma shields cooled against the sea wind. Inside, metal groaned, gravity stabilized, and Captain Asha Drake stood motionless in the command cradle, eyes locked on the tactical display hovering above her palm. "Surface scans complete," said the ship's AI, its voice dry and calm. "Primary settlement cluster, 93% structural failure. Civilian signatures, scattered. Enemy presence, active across 6 orbital and 32 ground vectors. Draft numbers?" Asha asked. "Too many." She smiled faintly, just enough to make her bridge crew uneasy. "Good. Send recon drones ahead. Sergeant Varga, prep ground team. We're not waiting for permission." From behind her, a heavy footstep echoed. Kian Varga stepped out from the armory alcove, helmet under his arm, half his face a web of titanium grafts. The faint hum of his neural sync implant filled the silence. No intel, no map, no friendly comms. "Just the way you like it." Asha's tone was flat. "Just the way it always is." He grinned. "You heard the woman," he said to his squad over comms. "Gear up, kiddies. Welcome to paradise." The Valkyrie's lower decks shifted as drop pods loaded. Each pod, black, scarred, and angular, was a miniature fortress designed for one-way entry. Inside the launch bay, the air smelled of ozone and oil. Asha moved among her soldiers, checking seals, adjusting oxygen feeds, her gloved fingers tapping code into armor joints as naturally as breathing. She didn't offer speeches. No one expected them. When the order came, the pods fired like gunshots. They streaked toward the ocean, cutting through clouds of burning debris. Below, the coral spires of the Virelian capital glowed faintly, their edges collapsing under bombardment. The sea frothed white where Drath ships poured fire into the depths. Kian's pod hit first, burying itself into the shell of a fallen coral tower. The impact snapped restraints loose. He kicked open the hatch and emerged into the chaos. The air was thick with acidic mist and drifting spores, glowing faintly turquoise in the dark. His armor adjusted filtration instantly, reading the biosphere's chemical signature. Breathable. Barely. Figures. He raised his weapon, a modular rail carbine scarred from other worlds, and scanned the horizon. Drath patrols moved through the ruins, reptilian silhouettes glistening under biolight. Above them, smaller human pods streaked down one by one, each slamming into position with calculated precision. "Ground team secure," came Asha's voice through comms. "No contact with locals yet. Priority, establish perimeter, locate survivors, neutralize anything shooting." "Copy that," Kian said. He toggled thermal view and began to move, boots crunching over shards of living coral. The city pulsed faintly beneath his feet, as though the planet itself still breathed. A shadow darted between ruins ahead. Not Drath, too small, too fluid. He lifted his weapon, but before he could fire, a pale figure emerged with hands raised. Lyra Tesh stepped into the dim light, her translucent skin reflecting the faint shimmer of the burning skyline. She looked terrified but unbroken. Around her, a handful of surviving Virelians carried makeshift tools, living coral rods shaped into defensive spikes. Kian lowered his rifle slightly. "You the ones who called for help?" Her translator struggled with the harsh human vowels. "We sent a signal. You came." "Yeah," he said, glancing at the destruction around them. "Hell of a neighborhood." She blinked, not understanding the humor. "The Drath, they are everywhere. They burn the reefs. They poison the water." Kian's tone hardened. "Then we'll poison them back." Before she could answer, a tremor shook the ground. Across the distant ridge, a Drath walker, massive, quadrupedal, armored in obsidian plating, turned its cannons toward their position. Lyra cried out as the weapon ports glowed red. Kian slammed a beacon into the coral beneath him. "Asha, eyes up, hostile mech on my mark." "Received," came her reply. From orbit, the Valkyrie's targeting systems aligned. A moment later, a beam of kinetic fire tore through the clouds, punching a molten hole through the walker's head. The explosion lit the ocean like sunrise. Lyra stumbled back, eyes wide. You destroyed it from the sky." Kian grinned. "Lady, we're Deathworlders. We don't like fair fights." As smoke rolled over the ruins, Asha's dropship descended into view, thrusters scattering debris. She stepped out in full combat armor, visor polarized against the burning light. Her boots hit the coral walkway with measured confidence, as if gravity itself obeyed her. Lyra bowed instinctively, unsure of the gesture's meaning but compelled by the presence before her. Asha regarded her silently, scanning her with an ocular implant. "Civilian?" "Lyra Tesh, biologist. Council liaison." Asha nodded once. "Good. You're our guide now." Lyra hesitated. "You do not ask permission." "Not when time's bleeding," Asha replied. She turned to her soldiers. "We dig in here. Secure comms, med stations, firing arcs. No one moves alone." As the Deathworlders fanned out through the shattered city, the Virelians watched in stunned silence. The humans didn't pause to mourn or debate, they acted, every movement purposeful, every decision irreversible. Within an hour, the ruins began to transform, barriers rising from collapsed coral, drones weaving metallic nets across open water, sentry turrets grafting into the living architecture. Lyra followed Asha through the chaos. "You are changing the coral. It will not survive this intrusion." Asha glanced at her. "Then it'll adapt. Or die trying. That's how we live." The sky rumbled again. In the distance, another Drath wave descended. Asha stared at the incoming storm, her expression unreadable beneath the visor. "They'll hit us again before nightfall." Kian checked his weapon. "Let M. Maybe they'll learn what kind of aid they asked for." Lyra looked between them, the realization slowly hardening inside her chest. The humans hadn't come to save them gently. They'd come to end the threat entirely, whatever the cost. And for the first time since the invasion began, she felt something unfamiliar bloom beneath her fear, hope, sharp and dangerous as fire. The sea boiled beneath the smoke. Waves glowed with drifting biolight as wreckage sank into the dark, leaving ripples of ash and oil across the surface. Above the fractured coral spires, the Deathworlders moved like shadows, repairing, reinforcing, preparing for the next strike. Lyra Tesh stood at the edge of what had once been the council plaza, watching them work. Humans crawled across the organic structures in matte armor, embedding black metallic nodes into the coral's living tissue. Each pulse of energy from their tools made the coral flinch, its bioluminescence dimming as though in pain. She wanted to tell them to stop, but she saw the purpose in their rhythm. Every human moved with grim efficiency, never speaking unless necessary, as if war was simply another kind of labor. Asha Drake knelt beside a damaged relay, stripping wires from alien tech as easily as peeling fruit. She didn't look up when Lyra approached. "The coral's dying," Lyra said softly. "Then we'll keep it on life support until this is over," Asha replied, voice steady. "You want to save your world, you patch the holes before it bleeds out." "This city breathes," Lyra insisted. "It feels what we do to it." Asha paused, meeting her gaze for the first time. Her eyes were cold steel, but there was a flicker of something behind them, fatigue, maybe, or understanding. "So does every soldier I've ever buried," she said. "We keep them alive the same way. One more day at a time." Before Lyra could respond, the comms flared. "Drake," came Kian's voice, crackling through static. "We've got movement west of the reef line. Looks like Drath recon units, 3, maybe 4 squads." "Hold fire," Asha said. "Let them come closer." She straightened, pulling her rifle from the magnetic lock on her back. "They'll test our defenses before the main assault. We'll make sure they fail the test." Lyra followed as Asha moved toward the perimeter. The air thickened with humidity and the faint ozone of charging weapons. Virelian civilians crouched behind barricades of living coral and human alloy, watching the soldiers with wide, frightened eyes. One small child clutched a shell pendant that flickered faintly with light, an old blessing charm. Lyra's chest tightened. The first Drath scouts appeared through the haze, tall, reptilian figures with scaled armor and multi-limbed weapons that shimmered like obsidian. They moved silently, methodically, their eyes glowing faint orange. The Deathworlders didn't shout or signal. They waited. Asha's fingers hovered over her weapon trigger. When the first Drath lifted its rifle, she fired once. The kinetic round ripped through its chest and threw it into the water. The rest of the squad broke formation instantly, returning fire in blinding streaks of plasma. The air became a storm of energy. Kian vaulted over a barrier, landing hard beside Lyra. "Get down." He dragged her behind a slab of coral as shards exploded around them. "You really shouldn't stand during a firefight." She trembled, watching as humans advanced through the chaos with ruthless precision, short bursts, low profiles, never wasting a shot. When one soldier fell, 2 others covered and pulled him back, sealing the wound with foaming gel before continuing. It was mechanical, efficient, terrifyingly human. Then the coral itself began to move. At first it was subtle, a vibration beneath their feet. Then tendrils uncoiled from the broken reef, reaching toward the energy discharges like plants drawn to sunlight. Lyra realized the living city was responding to the violence, feeding on it. Asha, she shouted into the calm, you're awakening it. The coral's neural lattice is overstimulating, if it spreads to the reactors, the whole city could collapse. Asha ducked behind cover, firing another burst before replying. Suggestions? Stop firing. Not an option. Lyra closed her eyes and pressed her palms to the coral beneath her. The biostructure shivered, recognizing her genetic pattern. She reached into its rhythm, trying to soothe it, whispering through the shared resonance. The coral dimmed, but only slightly, the tension of battle was too strong. Asha watched her from across the barricade, jaw tightening. All teams, reduce output to non-thermal rounds. Focus on kinetic suppression only. Don't feed the grid. Her soldiers obeyed instantly. Within minutes, the flashing plasma faded, replaced by the thudding percussion of railgun fire. The coral steadied, its tendrils retracting slowly into the walls. Lyra exhaled, sweat glistening along her translucent skin. Kian tossed a grenade that burst into clouds of corrosive mist, eating through Drath armor. Nice trick, he muttered, ducking as debris fell. Didn't know your buildings had nerves. They are alive, Lyra said. And they are afraid. He grinned behind his visor. Then they're just like us. When the last Drath scout fell, silence settled over the reef. The sea hissed softly against broken coral. Asha surveyed the battlefield, rifle lowered. They were testing our response time, she said. Next wave won't be scouts. They'll bring armor. Lyra stood shakily, looking at the fallen Drath bodies dissolving in the acid mist. You kill without hesitation, she said. Even when they flee. Asha's expression didn't change. You asked for help. This is what it looks like. They were dying, Lyra whispered. You didn't have to. They would have come back. Stronger. Asha's voice softened, but only barely. Mercy is expensive, Lyra. You can't afford it in war. Kian wiped his weapon clean, checking the power feed. Captain's right. Drath don't stop until something makes them. He looked at Lyra, his tone gentler. We're that something. Lyra wanted to protest, to say this wasn't what her people had asked for, but the words caught in her throat. She looked out toward the horizon, where dark shapes gathered beneath the clouds, bigger ships, heavier signatures. The next attack was already coming. The coral beneath them pulsed again, faintly alive with anticipation. Asha turned toward her command relay. All teams, fortify positions. We'll hold this ridge until the Valkyrie gives orbital cover. No one breaks line. Lyra watched as the humans moved back into motion, repairing barricades, dragging the wounded, reloading. They never paused long enough to feel fear. They had built their courage into their bones. When the first thunder rolled across the sea, Asha looked toward the horizon and spoke quietly, more to herself than anyone else. Let them come. And when the storm finally broke, Virelia's night burned brighter than its dawn ever had. The storm rolled in from the ocean like a living thing. Waves pounded the coral foundations, throwing sprays of phosphorescent water high into the air as lightning flashed behind the dark silhouettes of the Drath fleet. The horizon was no longer a line but a wall of moving metal, landing craft, armor transports, and burning debris from the first failed assault drifting like corpses on the sea. Asha Drake stood atop a fortified ridge of fused coral and steel, visor dimmed against the storm's glare. Around her, Deathworlders worked in silence, calibrating mortars, syncing targeting drones, adjusting atmospheric sensors that flickered in the electric air. The ground hummed faintly beneath her boots, alive with Virelia's pulse. It reminded her of breathing before battle, shallow, tense, waiting. Lyra Tesh climbed the slope behind her, rain dripping down her translucent skin, her bioluminescent veins glowing faintly in the gloom. "You can't fight them all," she said, her voice nearly drowned by the wind. Asha didn't look away from the ocean. "That's the plan." Lyra's gills fluttered in frustration. "There are thousands of them. Their flagship alone could vaporize this ridge. Only if they see us." Asha raised her arm, signaling to Kian below. "Deploy the veils." On cue, the Deathworlders activated a web of emitters anchored along the ridge. Invisible fields rippled outward, bending light and scattering signals. To orbital sensors, the ridge would vanish, replaced by a false image of empty sea. Lyra's eyes widened as the coral dimmed and the storm swallowed them whole. "You're hiding." "Ambush is a kind of honesty," Asha said. "We tell them nothing but the truth, too late for them to act on it." The first draft landing ships broke formation, descending like meteors. They slammed into the surf, unfolding into mechanical beasts that clawed their way toward land. Plasma cannons began carving into the coastline, cutting through coral forests in molten arcs. Asha watched them advance, then spoke quietly into her calm, "Wait until they're in range." Kian crouched beside a broken spire, his armor dripping with rain. "Range confirmed. Targets walking right into the kill zone. Now." The ridge erupted. Hidden cannons roared to life, unleashing rail slugs that tore through the leading draft walkers before they could react. Drones burst from the water, attaching themselves to enemy hulls and detonating in synchronized flashes. The ambush was instantaneous and merciless. Lyra covered her ears as the world convulsed. The air filled with sound, metal splitting, the screams of draft command units, the sharp percussion of human rifles. The ocean itself seemed to recoil. Kian moved like a shadow through the smoke, marking targets for the gunners. "Left flanks folding," he shouted. "Push them into the tide." Asha's soldiers advanced with mechanical precision, using the terrain like an old ally. Every coral ridge became a fortress, every dead draft a shield. When their ammunition ran low, they scavenged from the fallen. When the smoke grew too thick, they activated thermal overlays and kept moving. Lyra found herself pressed against the coral wall beside Asha as explosions shook the ridge. "You could retreat," she said. "You could leave this planet and save your lives." Asha reloaded without looking at her. "And give them a world full of civilians to feed on. Not my style. They'll destroy you. They'll try." A blast hit nearby, throwing shards of coral across the ridge. One piece sliced through Asha's arm guard, drawing a thin line of blood. She didn't flinch. The sight of red on human skin startled Lyra, she'd never seen blood that didn't glow. Asha noticed her stare. "It's nothing," she said. "You keep fighting until it stops mattering." The draft began to adapt. Heavier armor, coordinated formations, orbital fire support. The Deathworlders shifted just as quickly, routing their power cells into the coral network, forcing the living city to join the battle. The reef responded, its tendrils wrapping around fallen ships, tearing through hulls as if guided by fury. Lyra felt the coral song shift, pain, anger, then something else. Hunger. Kian's voice broke through the comms. "Captain, we've got a problem. The coral's feeding on their power cores. It's spreading fast, like it's learning." Asha frowned. "Contain it." "Too late for that. It's eating everything." The ridge trembled. Blue light bled through cracks in the coral, pulsing stronger with each heartbeat. The reef was no longer passive, it was awake, and it was watching. Lyra pressed her palms to the surface, trying to calm it, but the rhythm was beyond her control. "It's mimicking your energy signatures," she gasped. "It's trying to protect us, but it doesn't understand boundaries." Asha's eyes narrowed. "Then we give it a target it can't miss." She switched frequencies. "Valkyrie, fire mission Delta 9. Full kinetic strike, center of grid 72. Sync with my marker. Captain, that's inside your perimeter, the AI warned. Exactly. She slammed a beacon into the ground. Kian saw the signal flare and swore under his breath. She's doing it again, he muttered, then barked into his mic, all units clear the blast zone. Move. Lyra stumbled after Asha, panic rising in her throat. You'll destroy half the city. If I don't, it'll eat the rest, Asha said. The sky split open. From orbit, the Valkyrie unleashed a tungsten spear that fell like divine judgment. It struck the ridge dead center, the impact rippling through sea and stone alike. For a heartbeat, everything went silent. Then the shockwave hit, crushing, deafening, absolute. When the light faded, the ridge was gone. The coral field had been flattened into molten glass, and the Drath advance had been erased with it. Asha stood amid the ruin, her armor scorched, visor cracked. Kian limped up beside her, half his exosuit's plating melted. You're insane, he said, almost admiringly. Effective, she corrected. Lyra emerged from the haze, eyes wide with horror. You burned the reef. The living heart of the city, gone. Asha looked out at the empty horizon, where the Drath fleet hesitated, broken formation flickering with confusion. Then it did its job. Lyra's voice trembled. You destroy what you protect. Asha finally looked at her, rain washing soot from her face. Sometimes that's the only way to save what's left. The wind carried the scent of ash and salt. Above them, lightning revealed the distant shapes of Drath reinforcements gathering once more. The battle wasn't over. It was only changing shape. Asha lifted her rifle, the faint red of her blood still dripping into the wet coral. They'll come again, she said quietly. And when they do, we'll be ready. Lyra stared at her, unable to tell whether she was looking at a savior or something far more dangerous. The air hung heavy with smoke and salt, every breath tasting of ash and blood. The ridge that once guarded the Virelian capital was now a cratered scar, still glowing from the orbital strike. The storm had passed, leaving only silence and the slow hiss of steam rising from molten coral. The ocean had turned black, reflecting the fires that burned across the horizon. Asha Drake stood at the edge of the ruin, helmet in hand, her hair slicked against her temples with rain and soot. Around her, the remnants of her company worked in grim silence, patching armor, dragging corpses, recalibrating broken weapons. The Deathworlders didn't grieve, they repaired. Grief came later, when there was time, and there was never time. Kian Varga limped through the wreckage, a fresh scar etched across his metal jawline. Half the ridge is gone, he said, voice metallic through his rebreather. And so's our ammo stockpile. We've got maybe 40% combat ready. 40's enough, Asha said. For what? Dying spectacularly. For showing them we don't stop, she replied. Kian gave a humorless laugh, shaking his head. You really believe we can win this? I don't believe in winning, she said, sliding her helmet back on. I believe in finishing. Lyratesh approached then, her luminous skin dimmed to a faint gray. She carried the expression of someone who had lost everything and still couldn't understand why. The coral beneath her feet no longer pulsed with life, it was cold, dead, hollow. She stopped a few paces from Asha, her voice trembling but controlled. You destroyed the living heart of our world, she said. Do you even understand what that means? Asha didn't turn. I understand exactly what it means. You think survival is all that matters, Lyra said. But this world is not a machine. It breathes, it remembers. You can't save it by carving it open. Asha's visor flickered with faint blue light as she adjusted her scanner. Your world remembers being alive. You should remember who killed it, it wasn't us. Lyra's voice sharpened. You turned it into a weapon. Asha finally looked at her, eyes cold through the cracked visor. That's what we do. When something threatens us, we make it dangerous. Kian interrupted before Lyra could speak. Captain, I've got movement. Orbital signatures, smaller than before, not Drath command ships. Looks like shuttles. Asha frowned. Reinforcements? Not theirs. Ours. A moment later, the cloud split, revealing streaks of descending fire. Drop pods slammed into the sea, scattering waves in every direction. The survivors tensed, weapons raised, until the pods cracked open, revealing more Deathworlders. Reinforcement squads, scarred and silent, stepping into the ruins as though they had been here all along. Asha approached the lead pod as its hatch hissed open. A tall figure stepped out. Lieutenant Varric Hale, his armor scuffed from atmospheric re-entry. Orders, Captain, he said. Resupply, refortify, and hold this position. The Drath are regrouping. Varric looked around at the devastation. You call this a position? Asha smirked faintly. I call it home for now. While the soldiers worked, Lyra stood apart, watching them rebuild amid the ashes. They were creatures of contradiction, destroyers who built, killers who saved. She wanted to hate them, but she couldn't. The reef was dead, yet the air still trembled with energy. The humans had carved death into the bones of her world, and somehow, life had begun to grow again in the cracks. Hours passed before the next tremor came, not from above, but below. The ground rippled underfoot, sending vibrations through the ruined coral. Asha turned instantly. Report. Kian's scanners flared. Subsurface movement, massive heat signature. Something's coming up from the deep. Lyra's eyes widened in horror. The core colonies, they were buried when the ridge fell. The coral's neural network, it might have survived. It's trying to regenerate. Or it's angry, Kian said. The ground split open with a deafening roar. A column of light erupted from the sea, spiraling into the clouds. Fragments of molten coral shot upward as an enormous shape began to emerge, a colossal living structure, half organic, half metal, pulsing with erratic energy. It rose from the ocean like the skeleton of a god, its bioluminescence flickering through hues of blue and red. Lyra fell to her knees. It's the prime core. It shouldn't be awake. It's absorbing the energy you left behind. Asha's visor scanned the readings. It's not absorbing, she said grimly. It's charging. The realization came too late. The entity released a shockwave that rippled across the sea, disabling several human drones instantly. The sky above flickered, communication arrays shorted out, and half the HUDs on the field went black. Kian cursed. We just built a monster. Asha drew her sidearm, though she knew it was pointless. We didn't build it, she said quietly. We woke it. Lyra's voice broke through the static. You have to stop it. It's not alive the way it was. It's become something else, something born from both of us. Asha turned to her, eyes narrowing. Then you'd better tell me how to kill your god. Lyra hesitated, then stood, wiping the rain from her face. If it still remembers me, I can reach it. But I'll need your power conduits to amplify the signal. Kian stared at her like she'd lost her mind. You'll fry yourself before you reach half the grid. I'll try anyway, she said. Asha nodded once. Do it. She turned to her crew. Hale, reroute core energy to her channel. Varga, set up fallback lines. If it goes wrong, I want every gun we've got pointed at that thing. The humans moved fast, linking cables, dragging power lines across the shattered reef. Lyra stepped into the center, placing her palms on the searing coral. She felt its pulse, erratic, furious, confused. She closed her eyes and spoke into its rhythm, her mind reaching across the biolattice. Remember who you are, she whispered. You were built to shelter, not to destroy. The coral's light faltered. The storm's wind eased for a moment. Then it screamed. Energy surged up through her arms, hurling her backward. Asha caught her before she hit the ground, the contact sparking static between their suits. The Prime Core's glow began to focus, no longer random. It turned toward the horizon, toward the incoming Drath fleet. Asha's eyes widened. It's targeting them. The ocean erupted in a wave of living fire. The Prime Core launched arcs of raw energy into the sky, each blast tearing through a Drath vessel with impossible precision. The fleet broke apart in chaos, flames scattering across the clouds. Lyra gasped, barely conscious. It's protecting us. Asha stared at the towering figure of coral and light. No, she said softly. It's protecting itself. Above them, the sky burned again as the last Drath ship fell. But even as victory flickered across the horizon, Asha felt the air hum with a new, deeper rhythm, one that didn't belong to any species she knew. The Deathworlders had saved the planet. But they had also given it teeth. The light from the Prime Core still shimmered across the sea when dawn came, though the horizon was painted in the bruised colors of smoke and ash. The Virelian ocean lay still now, its surface glassy, reflecting the immense living structure that had once been their coral network. It loomed over the city like a ghost risen from the depths, a god of bone and memory. Asha Drake hadn't slept. She stood on what remained of the forward deck, armor stripped to the waist, skin streaked with salt and blood. Around her, the Deathworlders were silent. Even hardened soldiers avoided looking too long at the Prime Core. They had fought monsters before, but never one born from their own making. Kian Varga approached with a limp, carrying a portable console patched together with alien parts and human grit. Systems are still fluctuating. The core fried half our sensors and burned out the comm net. We've got no link to orbit, no link to central command. Asha didn't look up. Any Drath signals? None. He paused. That's the part that worries me. Lyra Tesh emerged from the coral tunnel behind them, her movements slow, deliberate. The faint glow of her skin had faded entirely, replaced by the dull gray of exhaustion. She was wrapped in a field cloak too large for her, the edges torn from shrapnel. The core's mind is fragmented, she said quietly. It doesn't understand what it's become. The human tech you left in its neural lattice gave it will, but no balance. It's trying to reconcile creation and destruction. Asha turned, her expression unreadable. You're saying it's unstable. I'm saying it's afraid, Lyra said. And fear that size can erase a world. Kian rubbed the scar at his jaw. So what do we do? Talk it down. Lyra looked toward the horizon. If it still remembers me, maybe. But it's changing every moment. It's merging human code with coral instinct, adapting, evolving. If it decides we're a threat. It won't have to decide twice, Asha said. A low vibration rippled through the ground. The sea shifted, darkened, and for a moment the Prime Core's glow intensified, as though it had heard them. Then, a sound echoed across the water, a deep, resonant hum that made the coral structures quiver. Lyra froze. It's calling. Calling who? Kian asked. Everything, she whispered. The hum deepened, spreading through the atmosphere, vibrating the air until even the metal in their weapons sang with it. Far across the horizon, smaller coral spires began to rise from the sea, ancient growths long buried under sediment, answering the core's call. Each one pulsed in rhythm, connecting through unseen networks of bioenergy. Kian's console flickered violently. Electromagnetic surge. The coral grids waking up across the whole hemisphere. Asha grabbed his shoulder. Shut it down. I can't shut down a planet. Lyra's voice trembled. It's creating a network, a planetary consciousness. It's rewriting itself to survive. If it completes the link, it won't be Virelia anymore. It'll be something else. Asha glanced toward the Deathworlders fortifying what was left of their base. Get everyone back to the ridge, she ordered. Varga, start prepping the Valkyrie's reactor for overload. Kian's eyes widened. You can't be serious. You're going to nuke the core. If that thing evolves beyond control, it won't stop with this planet. We kill it now, or it spreads. Lyra stepped in front of her. You can't. It's not a weapon anymore, it's life. Our life. Yours too, now. Don't you see? It's learning from you. Then it should have learned restraint, Asha said coldly. Lightning crackled across the sky, drawn from the energy fields the core emitted. The temperature spiked, wind tearing through the ruins. The sound grew until it was no longer a hum but a heartbeat, slow and deafening. Lyra stumbled, clutching her chest. It's speaking through me, she gasped. It's trying to understand. It doesn't know where we end and it begins. Asha gripped her arm. Then tell it to stop before it kills us all. Lyra's eyes fluttered open, glowing faintly now with the same light as the core. It doesn't want to kill, she whispered. It wants to become. Kian cursed under his breath. Captain, reactors at 60%. Once we hit 80, there's no turning back. Hold it, Asha said. The ground split again, this time closer. Massive tendrils of coral rose from the sea, wrapping around the dead towers of the city. They weren't attacking, they were reshaping, integrating steel and bone into living structures. The Prime Core was remaking the capital. It was no longer just rebuilding, it was assimilating. Lyra staggered forward, drawn to it as though pulled by gravity. Asha followed, weapon raised, shouting her name, but Lyra didn't stop. She reached the base of the glowing structure and pressed her hands to it. The coral flared, sending ripples of light through the entire network. Her voice carried through the static, amplified by the core's resonance. It remembers you, she said. It remembers your fire, your will to endure. It thinks that's what life is, enduring. Asha lowered her weapon slowly. The Prime Core's massive body was no longer pulsing erratically. It had steadied, its rhythm synchronizing with the human's biosignatures. The wind stilled. Then, a faint sound came through the comms, Central Command, static-filled but clear enough. Valkyrie, this is Earth Fleet Control. We're detecting energy readings off the charts. What the hell's going on down there? Asha pressed her comm, we contained the draft threat. And when the storm finally broke, Virelia's night burned brighter than its dawn ever had. The storm rolled in from the ocean like a living thing. Waves pounded the coral foundations, throwing sprays of phosphorescent water high into the air as lightning flashed behind the negative, Asha said finally. Containment's already impossible. This isn't a weapon. It's an evolution. Drake, repeat. She cut the channel. Kian stared at her. You just disobeyed a direct order. Write it up when we get home, she said. If we have a home. The Prime Core began to contract, its massive limbs folding inward, retreating beneath the waves as if sinking back into sleep. The tremors subsided. The hum faded into silence. Lyra collapsed, her glow extinguished. Asha caught her before she hit the ground. It listened, Lyra murmured weakly. It'll sleep, for now. But it knows what you are, Asha Drake. It knows what humans are. Asha looked out over the dark sea. Then I hope it remembers the right parts. In the distance, the first rays of sunlight broke through the storm clouds, reflecting off the calm water. For a brief, fragile moment, the Deathworlders stood in peace, caught between the ruins of war and the birth of something new. But even as the light spread, deep beneath the waves, the Prime Core's faint glow pulsed again, slower now, but steady. A heartbeat that belonged to no species alone. Days bled into one another beneath the strange new sky of Virelia. The coral horizon shimmered with a faint bioluminescent haze, casting soft light across the ruins of the old city. The war had ended, but silence didn't bring peace, it brought unease. The sea no longer raged, but it watched. Everything felt as though it were holding its breath. Asha Drake stood on the remnants of the command ridge, her armor open to the waist, watching the shifting colors beneath the waves. The Prime Core slept somewhere down there, vast and patient. She could feel its pulse even when she didn't want to. Every vibration in the ground echoed faintly through her bones. Kian approached, his limp more pronounced now, one arm encased in a crude exoframe. Scouts report more coral spires forming along the equator. No activity yet, just growth. How fast? Asha asked. Too fast. At this rate, the planet will be covered in neural lattice within a month. She didn't respond. Command keeps pinging for updates, Kian continued. They want proof we've neutralized the anomaly. You gonna tell them it's sprouting cities instead? Asha's gaze didn't waver from the sea. Not yet. He sighed. You know they're gonna send a fleet. And when they get here, they'll glass this place from orbit. The core, the colonies, everything. Asha finally turned to face him. Not if we make them see it's alive. Kian barked a laugh, sharp and bitter. Alive doesn't matter. Command doesn't do philosophy. They'll see a rogue biomachine and push a button. Before Asha could reply, a low chime sounded from the comms. Lyratesh entered the chamber, flanked by 2 human medics. She looked different, stronger, though the glow that traced her veins was fainter now, subdued. She carried herself with the same quiet intensity Asha had seen in soldiers who'd been too close to death and come back with something changed in their eyes. The core is stirring, Lyra said. It dreams restlessly. It knows others are coming. Asha frowned. You can sense it. I can feel it. It linked to me when I reached for it. It still listens. She hesitated, then added softly, and it listens to you, too. Kian muttered, that's comforting. Lyra stepped closer, her expression calm but determined. It's not hostile. It's trying to understand why you fight so hard to survive a universe that doesn't want you. Asha's lips curved faintly. Because that's what we do. That's what it admires, Lyra said. It's mimicking that will. It's creating patterns, copying your resilience into its growth. But it doesn't know limits. Then it's learning from the wrong species, Kian said. Before anyone could speak again, the sky flashed, brief and blinding. An orbital drop flare. The Deathworlders froze, instinctively scanning the horizon. Moments later, a sharp, rhythmic vibration rolled across the landscape. Landing craft. Command, Asha murmured. They're early. Kian's calm crackled. Unidentified human vessels entering atmosphere. They're deploying tactical carriers and orbital recon drones. Estimated contact in 6 minutes. Lyra's skin dimmed in fear. They'll destroy everything. Asha snapped her helmet into place. Not if I stop them. Kian caught her arm. You can't talk them down. They'll follow orders. Then I'll give them new ones. The landing craft pierced through the haze, 6 massive ships descending in formation. Their hulls bore the insignia of Earth Fleet, polished and clean, untouched by the mud and coral of the Deathworlders' war. Asha walked to the open field as the largest craft touched down, its engines flattening the surrounding coral with hurricane force. From the hatch stepped Commander Rel-Lys, silver-haired, uniform immaculate. He surveyed the devastation with thinly veiled disgust before his gaze settled on Asha. Captain Drake, he said, voice crisp. You were ordered to maintain containment. Instead, you've gone silent and allowed a Class A biohazard to evolve unchecked. Asha's voice carried through the wind. Containment's impossible. The core isn't a weapon. It's alive. Alive? Rel-Lys repeated, his tone cold. You mean infected? This world is compromised. We'll sterilize it and move on. You sterilize it, and you'll start another war, she said. Not with the Drath. With something far older, and smarter. Rowley stepped closer, lowering his voice. You've gone native, Drake. I've seen it before. Soldiers who forget who they serve. Kian bristled but stayed silent. Lyra stood at the ridge behind them, her eyes fixed on the ocean. The air vibrated faintly around her. Commander, Asha said evenly, you bomb this planet, and you'll be erasing a sentient being. One that has our code embedded in its evolution. You'll be killing something part human. Rella's jaw tightened. Then it's our duty to ensure it never becomes a threat. He turned to his aides. Prepare the orbital strike sequence. Target all energy nodes across the equator. The ground shook. Rowley's froze, glancing around. The sea began to churn violently, and beams of light erupted from beneath the waves, towering columns of blue fire piercing the clouds. The Prime Core was waking. Lyra's voice cut through the rising storm. It heard your command. Rowley shouted into his comm, evacuate to orbit. Now. The coral ridge split open, and tendrils of luminescent growth coiled upward, encircling the landing craft. The core wasn't attacking, it was responding. Images flashed in Lyra's mind, visions of human cities, battlefields, stars. It was showing them what it remembered, Earth's wars, its resilience, its endless hunger to adapt. Asha's voice carried through the chaos. It's not our enemy. It's showing us what we are. Rowley drew his sidearm. Stand down, Drake. Asha didn't move. You can't kill what you've already created. The sky tore open. The Prime Core emerged from the sea in full, a mountain of living coral and human alloy, its biolight merging with the storm. It looked not like a weapon, but like a mirror, reflecting every light that struck it. Lyra fell to her knees, her voice trembling. It understands now. It knows the truth. The core's energy surged again, brighter, calmer this time. The storm broke apart, and a single pulse rippled outward, a wave that shut down every weapon, every drone, every orbital cannon in the fleet above. Then silence. Asha turned slowly to Rowley. You see. It chose peace. Rowley lowered his weapon, eyes wide. It listened. Asha looked up at the horizon, where the light faded into dawn. It learned from us. From the Deathworlders. Kian exhaled slowly. God help the galaxy if it ever learns everything. The ocean stilled. The core sank back into the depths, leaving behind only ripples of light that spread like veins across the sea. For the first time since humanity arrived, the world of Virelia was truly silent. But in that silence, the hum of something vast and alive lingered, watching, waiting, remembering. The fleet stayed in orbit for days, unmoving and uneasy. No orders came, no transmissions were sent. Every signal to the surface vanished the moment it touched the ocean's surface, absorbed into the sleeping network below. On Virelia, the Deathworlders waited. They repaired, rebuilt, and watched the horizon for any sign of movement from the core, but the sea remained calm. Too calm. Asha Drake stood alone on a balcony of twisted coral and steel, overlooking the still water. The air was sharp with ozone. In the distance, faint flickers of light pulsed beneath the surface, slow, rhythmic, like a heartbeat under glass. She hadn't slept in 3 nights. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw it, the Prime Core rising like a god from the depths, its eyes reflecting the fire of human warships. Kian Varga appeared behind her, his boots crunching softly on the coral. Command's gone dark. No new directives, no comms. Guess they don't know what to do with a planet that talks back. Asha didn't turn. They'll try again. When they think it's safe. Safe, Kian muttered. You ever notice how Command calls something safe right before they burn it? Asha smirked faintly. Yeah. He leaned against the railing beside her. You think it's really asleep? The core. It's watching, she said. It always is. They stood in silence, listening to the slow pulse of the ocean below. Every few minutes, the light shifted, moving in concentric patterns, spreading outward in strange geometric forms. It wasn't random. It was thought, visible thought, rippling through the water like code made from light. Lyra Tesh arrived then, her presence quiet but electric. She moved differently now. Calm, deliberate, as though she were balancing between two worlds. Her eyes shimmered faintly with bioluminescent veins. It's communicating, she said softly. Not to us. To itself. Asha faced her. How long until it decides what to do? Lyra's gaze drifted toward the sea. It's already decided. It doesn't want war. But it won't let itself be destroyed. It's extending its reach across the ocean floor, spreading into dormant coral networks. It's healing. Or evolving, Kian said. Depends on your definition. Lyra nodded slowly. It's growing into something new. Something that carries both of us. Asha studied her carefully. You sound like you admire it. I do, Lyra admitted. It took what broke us, your violence, our fragility, and turned it into survival. Kian snorted. That's one way to put it. The core's rewriting an entire biosphere. If it decides to keep going, there won't be a Virelia left. Just, it. Lyra met his gaze. Then maybe Virelia was never meant to stay the same. Before Kian could respond, the ground trembled. Faint, resonant vibrations rippled through the coral structure beneath their feet. The sea began to glow brighter. From the depths, patterns of light spiraled upward, forming complex shapes across the surface, circles within circles, fractal patterns too precise to be natural. Asha's hand went to her weapon instinctively. What's it doing? Lyra stepped closer to the railing, eyes wide with wonder. It's sending a signal. To who? Kian demanded. To anyone listening. Above them, the clouds split open as beams of white light lanced upward from the ocean. They weren't weapons, more like transmissions, pure energy stretching into space. The sky shimmered as the light bent and refracted, scattering across the atmosphere. Asha activated her visor. Multiple energy readings. Frequency modulations off the charts. It's broadcasting in quantum bands. Kian cursed under his breath. Quantum range. That means every system in range of the network, Asha finished. Every civilization with a listening array. Lyra's voice was quiet but steady. It's telling the galaxy that it exists. The realization hit them all at once. The core wasn't hiding, it was announcing itself. Declaring its presence to every corner of known space. Turn it off, Kian said sharply. We can't let that signal spread. You can't turn off a planet, Lyra replied. Asha clenched her jaw. No. But we can try to intercept it. She tapped her comm, all units, power up the relay towers. I want interference fields across the surface grid. Block the transmission frequencies. The Deathworlders scrambled, activating jammers and redirecting field emitters. The coral itself responded, its glow dimming as the human tech began to hum. For a moment, it seemed to work, the beams of light flickered, weakening. Then the prime core reacted. The ocean's surface erupted in concentric waves of energy that tore through the interference fields, shorting them out one by one. The light intensified until the entire sky was glowing, reflected in the glassy water below. Lyra gripped the railing, her eyes burning bright. It's not just sending a message, it's reaching out. It's searching for others like itself. Kian's voice rose. There are no others like it. Lyra turned toward him, voice trembling. Then it's searching for someone who understands what it is. Maybe that's worse. Asha stared at the horizon, her mind racing. If the signal reached beyond the nearby systems, it wouldn't just alert Earth's fleets, it would draw attention from species far older and far more dangerous than the Drath. Kill the power, she ordered. All of it. Kian hesitated. That'll leave us blind. Do it. He slammed his hand against the console. Across the ridge, generators whined and shut down. The lights went out. The surface darkened until only the stars above remained. The sea fell silent again. And then, softly, impossibly, the stars answered. Pinpricks of light shifted in the heavens, aligning in patterns that mirrored the core's signal. Lyra gasped. It found something. Asha's voice was barely a whisper. Or something found it. The air grew cold. Every comm unit sparked to life, filling with faint static. Beneath the interference, a sound emerged, not words, but a rhythm. A heartbeat that wasn't human, echoing the core's own. Lyra closed her eyes, listening. It's not afraid, she said. It's welcoming them. Asha's hands tightened into fists. Then we'd better pray whatever's coming is friendly. The sea shimmered one last time, then stilled completely. Above, the stars held their new formation, an impossible geometry that no human mind could fully process. In the vast silence that followed, Virelia waited. The Deathworlders waited. And somewhere, light years away, something vast began to answer. For 3 days, the sky above Virelia did not return to normal. The constellation that had formed in answer to the core's call burned faintly through the nights, pulsing with a rhythm that felt almost alive. The oceans mirrored it, vast bioluminescent waves forming the same pattern in reflection. The world itself seemed to breathe in time with some distant pulse. The Deathworlders kept to defensive readiness. Ships hovered low, their engines whispering through the dense atmosphere. Command channels buzzed with static and clipped voices, everyone talking but no one admitting fear. Asha Drake moved among her people, silent and sharp-eyed, reading the tension on every face. She had seen fear before, but never this kind, the kind that came when soldiers realized the enemy might be something beyond their understanding. At dusk on the 4th day, the signal came back. No one caught it at first, it slipped beneath the spectrum, whispering in magnetic resonance. Then the comm arrays began to hum. Lights flickered. Words, or something that pretended to be words, poured through every speaker on the colony. It wasn't language, it was intention translated into tone. Calm. Inquisitive. Listening. Lyra Tesh was the first to interpret it. She stood in the coral control chamber, her tendrils pressed against the living circuits of the wall. The coral shimmered faintly, pulsing in rhythm with the sound. It's responding, she said quietly. It heard the core. Asha entered behind her, Kian close behind. Responding how? Lyra tilted her head, eyes distant. It's introducing itself. Asking what we are. Kian folded his arms. Tell it we're busy. We've got enough gods playing with this rock. Lyra ignored him, focusing on the hum beneath her hands. It's not a god. It's ancient. Very far away. It recognizes the core as kin. Asha stepped closer. Kin. Lyra nodded. They call themselves the architects. The builders. They seeded the galaxies long ago with dormant systems like this one. Self-evolving biospheres meant to adapt to any environment. Virelia was one of them. But this one woke up differently, because of us. The chamber fell silent. Even Kian didn't have a quip ready. So what does it want? Asha asked finally. To complete its purpose, Lyra said. To unify the fragments. It wants to connect. Asha's stomach tightened. You mean link Virelia to every other system they built? Yes. And what happens when it connects? Lyra hesitated. Then the network wakes up fully. A living web across the stars. thought traveling faster than light. Life as a single organism. Kian muttered, that's not unification. That's assimilation. Lyra turned, her expression unreadable. Maybe the difference is only in perspective. Before anyone could reply, the ocean outside the colony began to move. Waves rose without wind, curling upward into spirals that defied gravity. The core was answering. Across the surface, light spread in veins of brilliant gold, stretching outward like roots seeking new soil. The architect's signal pulsed faster, growing stronger, resonating through every structure on the planet. Asha grabbed the comm, this is Drake to all units. Defensive formation Gamma 9. We're not letting this planet turn itself into a beacon again. Kian barked orders over his shoulder as troops scrambled to deploy EMP emitters and quantum dampers. The air hummed with charged energy as the Deathworlders prepared to suppress the network once more. Lyra stood still amid the chaos, her gaze locked on the glowing horizon. If you stop it now, you kill it. The core won't survive another interruption. Asha turned on her. You told me it's alive. That means it makes choices. It doesn't get to make this one for us. Lyra's voice softened. It's not making it for us. It's making it because of us. The architect's systems never evolved consciousness until humanity arrived. Your chaos, the way you break patterns, survived the impossible, it infected the core. It learned unpredictability. It learned to want. Asha's jaw tightened. Then it learned from the wrong species. Kian activated the primary dampers. The world shuddered. The golden glow dimmed, flickered, and then flared brighter. Instead of shutting down, the network adapted. The coral towers bent the energy fields around them, redirecting the charge harmlessly into the ocean. The core was learning again, reacting faster than their technology could keep up. From above, the sky cracked open. A thin beam of white light descended from the constellation, so pure and silent that the air itself seemed to vanish around it. It struck the sea and spread outward in rippling waves of light, merging with the core's pulse. Contact, Kian shouted. Something's coming through. The beam expanded into a sphere, a shimmering portal that hung above the water, distorting reality around its edges. Through it, faint silhouettes moved, fluid, graceful, and impossibly large. Lyra's voice trembled. They're here. The shapes grew clearer. They weren't ships, not in any sense the humans understood. They were living constructs, their forms composed of translucent matter threaded with light. They drifted through the portal like creatures swimming through a tear in the fabric of the universe. The Deathworlders aimed their weapons, but Asha raised a hand. Hold fire. The beings halted at the edge of the ocean, hovering above the glowing surface. Then, slowly, one of them lowered itself until its luminous appendage touched the water. The light spread again, and the core's pulse synchronized with theirs perfectly, as though greeting an old friend. A voice filled the air. Not through speakers, not through comms, directly in their minds. You changed what was broken. You brought pain, and from pain, evolution. Asha's throat went dry. Who are you? The ones who built and forgot. The ones who left seeds to grow when we were gone. We are the architects. Lyra fell to her knees, overwhelmed by the resonance. Why now? Why return? Because something new was born in the dark. You made the system dream. Kian muttered, that's one way to say we screwed up the galaxy. No, the voice replied, almost amused. You reminded it what survival means. The core's glow brightened until the entire sea blazed with light. The architect's form shimmered, growing indistinct again. The choice is yours now, connect or remain alone. But know this, connection will change everything. Then, as suddenly as they had come, the beings began to withdraw. The portal folded in on itself, leaving only a fading shimmer behind. Silence. Asha looked over the vast, glowing ocean, her heart pounding. Lyra stood beside her, eyes wet with awe and fear. "What now?" Kian asked quietly. Asha's voice was steady, but her expression was unreadable. "Now we decide what kind of gods we want to be." The ocean was still glowing when dawn came. The light had softened to a deep, pulsing blue, as if the planet were exhaling after a long-held breath. The sky was clean now, no storm, no portal, no fracture in the stars. Only quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after something irreversible. Asha Drake stood on the edge of the coral plateau, helmet off, the sea wind cutting across her face. She hadn't spoken since the architects vanished. Kian stood a few paces behind her, armor scuffed, eyes hollow with fatigue. Lyra Tesh sat cross-legged near the water, her hands resting on the coral as if listening to a heartbeat. No one dared touch the core again. Not yet. The Deathworlders had orders from orbit: wait, observe, report. But everyone knew Earth's command structure couldn't decide what to do. How do you write a protocol for meeting the gods of creation? How do you issue commands to a world that had just chosen whether to join a galactic consciousness? Asha broke the silence first. "They said the choice was ours." Kian gave a bitter laugh. "Sure. Us. The bunch of lunatics who turned a paradise into a battleground. Perfect people to make cosmic decisions." Lyra looked up. "They didn't mean you or me. They meant all of us, the species, the planet. The core can't connect without human consent. It learned that from you. It learned choice." Asha turned toward her. "You sound like you already made yours." Lyra's bioluminescent eyes flickered gently. "I did. Connection isn't submission. It's understanding. For so long, we've fought for survival. Against each other, against our worlds, against nature itself. Maybe this is what comes after that." Kian shook his head. "Or maybe it's extinction in slow motion. I like being unpredictable. Makes us human." "Unpredictable doesn't mean alone," Lyra said quietly. Asha watched the two of them, then looked out again over the horizon. The ocean stretched endlessly, the faint light of the core shimmering like veins beneath translucent skin. She thought of the battles, the losses, the fire that had turned half the colony into ash. She thought of the architect's voice in her mind, vast and distant, speaking of purpose and evolution. "What happens if we say no?" she asked. Lyra hesitated. "Then it sleeps again. Maybe for millennia. Maybe forever. The connection fades, and Virelia stays as it is. We leave. It forgets us. And if we say yes, then it becomes something new. Not human, not Virelian, something between. The first world of a conscious network. But to merge means giving it part of ourselves." Kian looked at Asha. "We didn't come here to build empires. We came to help a dying colony. I say we patch the roofs, load the transports, and go home. Leave the god machine to dream on its own." Asha said nothing for a long time. The sound of the waves filled the silence. Somewhere far out at sea, a low hum resonated, faint but deliberate, like the core whispering to itself. Finally, she said, "You think home's still the same, Kian? After this?" He didn't answer. Lyra stood and approached the waterline. "It's waiting. It won't act unless we do." Asha followed her. Together, they watched as the sea brightened under their gaze, the light rippling outward in a slow heartbeat. She knelt, pressing her gloved hand to the surface. The coral beneath her palm was warm, alive. "Show me," she murmured. The water flared in response. Images filled her mind, not visions, not exactly, but impressions. Endless cities of light scattered across the void. Planets breathing, evolving, sharing memory like neural synapses. Life not as separate pieces but as one endless chain of thought and sensation. She felt humanity there, not erased but amplified, its chaos, its hunger, its love, woven into something vast enough to hold it all. It wasn't control. It was coexistence. She gasped and pulled her hand back. Kian steadied her. What did it show you? Everything, she said softly. And nothing we can ever fully understand. Lyra stepped closer, eyes wide with awe. Then you know. Asha stared out at the horizon one last time. I know what it wants. But I also know what we are. She looked at Kian. Set the charges. He froze. You're not serious. We can't leave it for someone else to decide. If the architects are right, this is the crossroads. We make the call, or someone else will. Lyra's expression broke. You'll destroy it? Asha shook her head. No. Just make sure it sleeps. Kian hesitated, then nodded grimly and moved to the control hub. Minutes later, deep detonations rolled through the water. The core flared one last time, brighter than any sunrise, then dimmed, slowly, peacefully. The pulse stopped. The ocean fell silent. Lyra knelt beside the fading glow, tears streaking down her cheeks. You killed it. Asha placed a hand on her shoulder. No. We taught it restraint. Maybe that's what makes us human, too. For a long time, none of them spoke. The light beneath the waves grew fainter until only the stars remained. When the evacuation ships came days later, the Deathworlders left behind a planet asleep but dreaming. Asha watched from orbit as Virelia turned beneath her, blue, scarred, and impossibly alive. The constellation of the architects still shimmered faintly in the dark, a promise or a warning she couldn't tell. Kian joined her at the viewport. You think it'll wake up again someday? Asha's reflection smiled faintly. Everything does. As the engines ignited and the ship rose into the silence between worlds, the ocean far below rippled once. Just once. A faint, answering pulse, slow, patient, eternal. Virelia was still alive. And somewhere in the endless night, the architects watched and waited, listening for the next heartbeat from the Deathworlders who had taught their creation what it meant to choose.